if you've got everything turned on. Once again, you don't need all the collection turned on. If you just turn on some of the pipes, it's not that intrusive. So don't enable everything. Test the components that you're trying to track down. Enable them, the rest alone. Get the information out. Do pick up a couple of white papers on how to read the output. It is really a significant amount of information, and tracking it, organizing it, coordinating without a tool does require a little bit of research. But hey, if you're a bits and bytes geek like me, probably a lot of fun for you. One thing to keep in mind is that the tables are set up in such a way that after you've read them once, the second time you read them, you'll get new information that hasn't actually disappeared from the table. There are internal counters set up so that you are only going to look at things once, so that you can, for example, keep copying from the table into a new target table, which is a useful thing to be able to do. One of the other great things you can do with these things is pick up some baseline performance data. Isolate and identify system bottlenecks, pick things up, and move forward. Summary. There are a lot of things that shops are simply not taking best advantage of. You may or may not have been aware of all these, but they're all very cool things that the SQL Server can do. Run the gamut from performance enhancement to control over the processes that are running on your system. You can push the limits of your server a little bit. These days, most folks have a lot more processor than they need in general. Going ahead and putting these things up for use of your convenience is probably a good idea. Okay, I'm a couple minutes early. At this point, I'll be happy to entertain any questions that anybody's got.
Submit questions online. I'll be fielding here. I do not have any questions. Oh, I might have one from here. Be a rebroadcast of this available at mlogica.com/webinar. We have a couple questions on that. Give it a here to see, a couple seconds here to see if anyone has anything posted on. And we do coming in here. Regarding statistics, does update all due to the histogram versus update index?
Good question. The update all statistics creates statistics on every column in the database, whether it appears in an index or not. I have read speculation that there are reasons for that to be a good idea, but my feeling is if it's an index, knowing what the distribution of the data is probably not hugely useful to the optimizer. And somebody can throw a theoretically interesting answer at me, but from a practical standpoint, if you have 50 columns in the table or 100 columns in a table, I don't want to build sets on all 50 or 100 columns because each one gets to get sorted individually. Just very time and resource constraining. So I do an update index stats instead.
Yeah, and again, those questions can be typed under the questions portion. Asking if resource governor plus MDA used together.
As I mentioned, it's difficult to quantify what the exact performance hit's going to be. If you're running at 30% of capacity, it probably doesn't matter if you turn everything on. Running at 90% of capacity, you might want to turn it all on slowly. I can't give you a true answer, and I'd be willing to bet that it's going to change from system to system. And keep in mind, it's also going to vary based on how much volume you've got going on your system. If your system is relatively light, well, neither of those is going to have a big impact because it's not going to be doing a lot of work. If your system is very heavy, the impact might be a little bit higher. One at a time.
Great. Another question here is, you suggest to create the primary key, no index. Do you have any specific reason for this kind of suggestion?
let's start with, I'm still of the school that every table should have a clustered index for a whole host of reasons. Primarily because if you don't, and that cluster index should probably not be on a sequential key. That's because as things grow, you don't want to set your insertion points, which is what you get if you have no clustered index. But also, the pages don't get reused well. If you have a table clustered index, everything just gets stuck at the tail end of the page chain. If a row moves from an earlier page, it gets stuck at the tail end of the page chain. If a page becomes mostly empty at the beginning of a page chain, it doesn't get, space just doesn't get reused. So there are a lot of reasons to use a clustered index. Most of the shops that I'm at that do not use clustered indexes are using third-party software that was written for purposes of running on Oracle and Sybase and SQL Server and DB2 and what else they wanted to run on. And they didn't have to maintain separate physical structure because Oracle, for example, does not have a clustered index structure. The catch is, I'll give a very specific example. I was at a shop February this year, and I was actually dealing with a different issue there, but I got brought into another group that's having a performance disaster. And we told them to do, they were running at 100% of 16 CPUs. This is third-party software. And what it was on one table to change one index from non-clustered to clustered. And of course, that was about a half, and the vendor didn't want to do it, and nobody wanted to listen to me. And finally, I said, look, I'm working on this other thing, but that's your answer. If you do it, that's fine. But give it a shot at least and test and see what the results are. I did back from them for 3 months until the other group brought me in to do something else. They said, oh, by the way, your one change brought 1% of 16 processors down to 7% of 16 processors. Did anybody say told you so for me? And they said, yeah, they actually did. So why would somebody recommend not using clustered indexes? I have to read the paper and hear the argument. I've heard the suggestion. I've heard any valid reasons for it. Some folks will say that the value of a clustered index is reduced if you're using all rows or all pages, data or data pages locking. I still see a lot of performance benefits from it from a variety of perspectives. Did I have a question, Dan?
So I think so, and you may have answered a couple more too. So.
Okay.
We're going to field a couple more questions here, and the questions can be sent. You can sign up for our LinkedIn group. Jeff will even that, or they can be sent to Jeff as well at the email address on the screen. But we have one question here for you. Suggestions on clustered index still apply to row-level locking and reorg rebuild.
The one aware of with 15, you can do a reorg rebuild even if you do not have the data level locking. If you're using all pages locking, so you can still do that route. Yeah, you still end up with multiple insertion points and better use of pages.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, but in the interest of time, you can send those questions to Jeff directly. You can send them to me directly, and the best way is to join our LinkedIn forum, which will be up in other DBA answer questions. If you have trouble signing up for that, you can reach out to either me, daniel.goetian@mLogica.com. You can reach out to Mike, or you can reach out to Peter Burney at mLogica.com as well. Let everyone know that we're going to be doing our next scheduled event for August 19th. We'll find slow-running queries. That should be an exciting topic. These sessions are recorded, and the broadcast will be available at www.mlogica.com/webinar. DBA group on LinkedIn is the best place to get technical answers to this, and we'll be fielding the rest of the questions through that. For attending today, hope you enjoyed our seminar, and I look forward to seeing everyone else in future seminars. And Mike as well.